Questions and doubts are a common and necessary part of every journey. They help find the best answers to life's hard questions and to challenge long-held beliefs that might not actually be true or proven or healthy. They can keep us from harm or help us to escape bad situations. Sometimes our questions and doubts can set us free, but they aren't easy, and these trying times can make us feel even more disconnected, desperate, and alone. But you are not alone. Recovering from Religion is an organization comprised of people just like you, people who have asked questions, who understand doubt, who can help you navigate through the confusion, and who are genuinely there to help. 24 hours a day, any day, you can reach out for encouragement and support on the telephone or via online chat. And RfR even provides online communities to connect with others just like you, even if you choose to do so anonymously. Recovering from Religion is a safe place where you can reach out, explore your questions, converse with a friend, and be completely yourself without fear. No judgment, no rejection, just an opportunity to connect with someone who understands. There's no reason to go it alone. Recovering from Religion is ready whenever you are. Reach out today at recoveringfromreligion.org.
Hello everyone, my name is Amaya Perez. I am your host and I'm also the online programming director of RfR. And I'm here with Eric Wells. Of course, you all know him. He's the support group director. So welcome all of you, especially you, Eric, and of course our speaker Janice, who we will introduce later. She's amazing. She has been here before, and I'm super excited to start with this session today. So the first thing we're going to do is pull up the poll. I would like to remind everyone that the poll is anonymous, so we will not be able to tell what you have answered, but we do encourage you to let us know your thoughts about these questions. So Eric, do you want to start explaining what it is that we do in RfR?
Absolutely. Absolutely. How about if I talk about RfRx? Is that all right?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's good. So here at RfRx, the idea behind it is to bring on guests and topics to discuss issues that may be relevant to the folks who come in and use RfR services, whether it's through the support groups or the helpline. Now, this is not at all a replacement for the helpline or the helpline community or the support groups. Merely, it's here to complement the communities. So we've got these experts on that can provide some fantastic advice and really kind of go delve deep into the topics. It also is here to help folks who may be having friends who are coming out of religion or family that are coming out of religion to kind of understand where they're coming from as well. If you have any inquiries, comments, topic suggestions, send us an email at the RfRx email, rfrx at recoveringfromreligion.org. And this video will be up on YouTube as well, probably this Saturday. And you can check out our YouTube channel. It's very simple. In fact, you're probably watching this on YouTube now. What I want to say about YouTube is that we are so close. I said this last week, so close to 1,000 subscribers. We've got maybe like 55, 54-ish left till we hit that 1,000 subscriber mark. We're pretty close, Amaya.
Yeah, it's super exciting. And I want to thank everyone who subscribed to the channel when I think it was Todd, or it was maybe you, Eric, who posted it on Slack. So thank you so much. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so, because we would love to reach that 1,000 mark. That would be amazing, really. Yeah.
So tell us about RfR.
Yeah, sure. So in RfR, we have a mission statement, and that is that we offer hope, healing, and support to those who are struggling with issues of religion and non-belief. So Eric, as always, do you want to start by explaining how we offer hope?
Yeah. We offer hope, and we provide for hope, or provide the opportunity for folks to experience hope through the telling and sharing of some personal stories. When I listen to our podcast, or when I read an article on our blog and it talks about a personal journey that someone went through, and I can relate to it, it kind of gives me a light at the end of the tunnel, some hope that if they can get through it, then I can get through it. And I wanted to let you know that we have moved our blog. We're over now at Medium. And so we got a brand new blog link. It's a fantastic and very much cleaner look in my opinion. So head on over to our new blog on Medium and subscribe to that as well. So tell us about the healing, Amaya.
Yes, so we offer healing via our helpline, which is done either by phone call or online chat, so you can choose and pick whichever you prefer. And this is a place in which our agents will listen to no judgment or criticism to any issues that you may have which are related to religion. This is a completely confidential, available 24/7 and safe space. So I really recommend you use it if you're struggling with any of these issues right now. And apart from this helpline community, we also have a very large number of resources. And this includes everything from articles to podcasts to videos, just anything you can imagine, books, you will find it there. So I highly recommend you go check it out if this is something that you're, again, struggling with, but maybe you don't want to talk to someone, you just want to check one of our resources. It's really a massive list of resources that we have, so I highly recommend it. And now, Eric, since you are the king of the support groups and the support leaders and everything in RFR, the floor is yours to explain how we offer support.
I wouldn't say I'm the king, but I'm the director for the support group program. And so I've been a support group leader for 5 years too, and just really have enjoyed running a support group. So the support groups is where we can provide a lot of support. It is these are face-to-face meetings, and they're usually in person, but due to the COVID right now, we're doing them all virtual through Zoom. We have 52 groups around the entire world, so there may very well be one near you. You can take a look at the Meetup website to see a map of all of the support group locations. We also provide support through the Secular Therapy Project. Now, the helpline and the support group program, those are designed to be peer support, where many of us are not trained professionally at all, but that doesn't always cut the mustard, and we may need some additional help, some professional help, and that's why we have set up the Secular Therapy Project to connect you with professional therapists who have been screened to be, number one, make sure that their licensing is up to date, to make sure that they are running a secular practice, so you won't run the risk of being proselytized to at all. And in addition to that, they're screened to make sure that they run an evidence-based practice too. You can sign up and find a local secular therapist near you at seculartherapy.org. What's next, Amaya?
Yes, so I just want to briefly speak about our private helpline community. And this is basically an online platform in which you can meet and chat with people who have similar backgrounds as you. We have all sorts of different groups, everything from LGBTQ+, exclusively for ex-military, for Australians, for females only. So if this is something that you feel like you could benefit from, I highly recommend you join one of these. All you have to do is just speak to one of our helpline agents, which, as I said before, you can contact them by phone call or chat, and they will guide you through all the steps that you need to follow. It should be easy enough. And apart from these online chats, they also hold Sundays. So again, if this is something that you would be interested in, contact one of our helpline agents, and they will help you with that. And before we speak about last week's RfRx, I do want to speak about how volunteering has affected us. Volunteering is such an amazing opportunity to give back to the community, to feel like you're doing something great with your time, to feel like you're helping others in a real way. And specifically in RFR, we have created an amazing community amongst the volunteers. So always looking for new ones. If this is something that you would like to join, or if this is something that you're interested in, we have all sorts of different roles that you can join. So I'm sure we'll find something for you. And if you want to join, all you have to do is go to our volunteering website, which is recoveringfromreligion.org/volunteer. Okay, And now let's talk about last week's RfRx. So last week we had Chris Johnson speaking about his book, A Better Life, and how we can connect with other atheists and how we can see a life without God in a hopeful way. For me, it was an amazing talk because it's such a unique piece of art. Yeah, Daryl is showing the book in Zoom. It's amazing. It's beautiful. It's massive. And it's just a great way of art to show how being an atheist doesn't mean that your life is ruined. You can be an atheist and you can be happy. And he shares, I think, 100, the stories of 100 atheists. So it was amazing. What were your thoughts, Eric? I'm sure that you enjoyed it, of course, but yeah.
I enjoy Chris every time I talk with him. He's just such a fantastic person. But what was neat is that I got to hear from him that he's dispelling the myth in his book about the angry atheist. I think that the angry atheists, they're very verbal, very loud, very out there, but there's so many just quiet atheists that don't yell or scream or show that they're angry. And what was neat is that Chris showed that side of atheism and non-belief, and he did it in a way that did not at all negate our anger, our frustration, and it was just very good to hear that from him and talk about that. I really appreciate it. He said that there was room for both, and I love that.
Yeah, he's such an approachable person. Like, he's so easy to talk to. It was such a pleasure to have him with us. It was just amazing. Okay, should I go through the meeting format, or do you want to do it, Eric?
I'll do it. So we run the RfRx meetings in the same every single time. We have a discussion for about an hour with our guests, and during the discussion, you may have a question you'd want to ask. So we encourage you to type that question into the chat, and we will pull it out and we'll copy it and paste it into our document here and make sure that we ask the guest the question. So our discussion will last about an hour, and then the Q&A session we'll have after that will be about 20 to 30 minutes. Then after that, we're going to hear from our executive director, Gayle Jordan, all the way from New York. She's traveling around the world, and she is right now in New York. So we're going to hear from her at the end of that. After we hear from our executive director, we're going to shut the recording off and have a whole hangout, a social time. So this is a time where you get to speak with the guests if they're willing to stick around. I think she's going to be willing to stick around, but I'll ask her. We'll make sure that we ask her. And you can also talk about whatever has been coming up for you the last week or last couple months. This is just a hangout time, just to get to know one another and hang out. Why don't you go ahead and introduce our guest, Amaya?
Definitely. I'm super excited this week because we already know Janice. She's amazing. She has been here before, and I was really inspired by the last time she came here. She told us about her amazing experience. Well, I mean, not amazing experience, but her amazing recovery experience, let's say, religion. It was really, I don't know, I'm always so humbled when someone tells stories like that, and it was definitely no exception. So Janice, she is a registered professional counselor with a personal history of religious trauma syndrome. She is passionate about helping others understand their losses and embrace their identity in the secular world. Her own deconversion experience compelled her to develop the online divorcing religion workshop, a 6-week interactive workshop combining written exercises and group work to bring together those from diverse backgrounds who are walking a similar journey. So welcome, Janice. Thank you so much for being here with us again. It's such a pleasure to have you another week with us.
It's so nice to see you again.
Amazing. So today I think you're going to talk about mind control and how not to fall for it after you have left religion, or if you're recovering from religion, because it's very easy to fall for these tricks. So how would you start with the topic? I mean, it's a massive topic, so.
It It really is. And actually, the way that I first would start is by telling everyone that I am not an expert in mind control. I want you to read books and watch videos by authors like Dr. Yanya Lalich and Stephen Hassan and Rick Allen Ross. And let's not forget Dr. Daryl Ray. If you want to learn more about how your brain works and how it is that we do end up falling prey to these mind control tactics. My background is as a fundamentalist Christian. So that's the kind of the group that I was in and the groupthink that I fell into. And I recognized that that authoritarian black and white type thinking, just because I left my religious group, that didn't mean that I left that type of thinking. That was harder for me to shake. And I had to do some research to learn about that. And that's why I wrote this particular module. It's the last module of my workshop, this one on not letting an old flame burn you twice.
Mm-hmm. So how would you define mind control? Because it can sound a bit like, I don't want to say the word magical, but a bit like pseudoscience kind of thing. But there is a real tactics that cults, religions, and also other organizations can use to trick you. So how would you define it?
Yeah, the way that I think best encapsulate it or has it reflects the most on the way that I think about it. I've got it written down here, so I'm just going to read it to you. When an ideology or a person fractures you at the level of your own identity, breaching or hijacking your values, beliefs, decisions, relationships, and behaviors to such a degree that a counterfeit identity is created. And that's what I feel like happened to me. So I was born, I'm second generation, born into religious fundamentalism. So my personality never did have an opportunity to develop my likes, dislikes, anything like that, apart from the very strong teachings of my church group and my parents. So I feel like that's kind of where things start. And also, of course, when you're in the group is having you filter all the information that you receive and the way that you perceive everything through the mindset of your religious group. So it really impacts your ability to think critically. You start becoming very defensive. You've got the cognitive dissonance showing up because we want to protect our worldview, especially when our identity is so closely tied in with our belief. Then it gets to the point that if anyone questions our belief, we respond very strongly because we feel that they're attacking our identity because those two are meshed, our beliefs and our identity. So then we have cognitive dissonance coming into play. And so what we'll do to try and relieve that tension. So for cognitive dissonance, it's the mental conflict that occurs when your beliefs or assumptions are challenged by new information. And so you might reject the information outright, or you might twist that information, or you might try and trick yourself somehow into thinking, oh, well, there really is no conflict there. Those are just some of the ways that that we might try and deal with that. And as you probably know, it can be very hard to talk with someone who is in the throes of fundamentalism or fanaticism or extreme thinking about any ideology, not just religion. We certainly see this going on, unfortunately, in politics right now around the world and in your own country. And we see this, it's splitting families apart because people are connecting so closely with their ideology and turning it into their identity. And it always causes division.
It sounds a lot like you're describing a cult, in a sense. I hear that from what you're describing, a lot of the folks I've been listening to and supporting over the last several years, many have come with backgrounds come from a cult.
Well, definitely, I'd say high control groups. different experts have different thoughts on what makes a cult. So some say that it can't, if it gets too large, it can't be a cult. But I tend to think that a cult can be as small as a family, or it can be as large as many millions of people. If it's a high control group that's trying to control you. I wanted to make sure that or point your viewers to Robert J. Lifton. So he's deceased, but he wrote 8 criteria for thought reform. And he did his studying based on, he was a psychiatrist, I believe. He did his studying based on prisoners of war from the Korean War, and they had been just brutally indoctrinated in the prisoner of war camps. And when they came out of those camps, they were not the same people as when they went in, and some of their thinking was very distorted in comparison to what it had been. So Dr. Lifton came up with 8 criteria for this thought reform. And the first one he talks about is information control or milieu control. So the group, the person in charge, they want to be controlling your environment, what gets into you. They also are concerned with mystical manipulation. And this is something that we actually see in churches, as far as them trying to make things appear quite spontaneous, but they're actually very planned. So if you think back to just about every worship service you ever attended, there's mood lighting, there's the music starts softly, and then it's going to build to a crescendo, and then it's going to get back down again to get you into a frame of mind for when the minister gets up to speak. There are other things done to almost alter your consciousness, say speaking in tongues. That was a very big part of my church experience. Other groups may use chanting. Even in, we know of the whirling dervishes in Turkey, these religious people, and they spin around and round and round. And what it's doing is it's bringing them into another state of consciousness. And then you're much more receptive to things at that point. It kind of breaks down your boundaries for critical thinking. Also, mystical manipulation tends to demonstrate a divine sort of authority, and that puts people off kilter. Another one of the 8 criteria for thought reform is the demand for purity. And we are familiar with this when we think about purity culture and how that's affected, unfortunately, so many people within the Christian religion. But also, it's a demand for purity in the doctrine. It's very black and white. You must believe this, not that.
Can you briefly explain the purity culture for the listeners who may not be familiar with it?
Sure. It's the idea that certainly that females, but males also, are to remain absolutely chaste until their wedding night. So you're certainly, porn is out, masturbation is out, it's a sin. Girls are very much controlled in what they're allowed to wear. Very modest, a real modesty type of culture. And I'm familiar with this because I certainly tried to force it onto my daughters when I was homeschooling. So I'm aware of purity culture, and it doesn't end well in a lot of cases. A lot of shame involved there. Confession was another one of Lifton's 8 criteria for thought reform. And so I thought that was really interesting because we typically think of confession being involved in a church or a church group. Actually, and some churches really demand it, and you have these small groups that you have to be a part of, and you're expected to confess. So this has a way of bonding people together. It also creates fear that someone might disclose, and that does actually happen. People end up using it as a way of keeping you in line because you don't want all your secrets blurted out. So a cult of confession.
I hadn't thought about that. The fear of, like, I just assume that people went into these confessionals trusting the priest, but I could see that, like, after a little bit, there may be this concern, oh crap, the secret is out there. I have to now rely on this person to keep his mouth shut.
Yeah, I can't speak to how it works in Catholicism because that wasn't part of my background. But in my background, what we had were accountability groups.
Oh, wow.
So you're getting together with a group of people, and maybe you struggle with pornography, or maybe it's something else, and you're really expected to be forthcoming about how many times per week you've thought about this. It's like there's no privacy.
Mm-hmm.
You can't even be in your own brain by yourself. And that does something to you.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you have this omniscient ghost just kind of seeing every thought that you have, like nothing is private. Absolutely nothing is private. That's, I didn't really think of how impactful that was to me when I was going through it, but I absolutely can see it afterwards, that how creepy it is to never have a private moment.
Oh, and one thing that I run into a lot with my clients who've come out of fundamentalist Christian backgrounds in particular, who have had this type of experience where they're not allowed to keep anything to themselves. Their parents have to know everything. The pastor has to know everything. These people, and myself included then, sometimes you go on to become someone who overshares. You share too much. So you're in a completely secular environment. Maybe you're starting a new job or whatever. You meet someone, you're just prone to blurting all sorts of things out because you haven't developed that social, like the social cues there that kind of let you know you don't have to share everything, and not everyone is safe to hear everything that you might want to share. So that's a real learning process as well. A lot of people can relate to that. So he talked about a sacred science too, Lifton did, and that's where he's talking about doctrine being the ultimate truth. Doctrine or the ideology, whatever group you're in, being the ultimate truth. There's nothing that can be higher than that. And of course, then the person who's dispensing that truth to you, you're viewing them as God's mouthpiece. It really puts them in an unfair position of power over their group and over the congregation. I'm worried I cut you off. Were you having a thought there?
Yeah, no, I didn't want to interrupt you, but I was wondering, how can you identify when maybe an organization that is not a religion is trying to manipulate you in similar ways as your religious group did, but maybe not exact subtle. So I was wondering if you could give us some tips or some sort of red flags to identify if we feel like something is wrong, but we're not fully sure with a new organization. For sure. Maybe trying to control us.
Yeah, there are tactics that different high control groups like to use. So in churches, a really common one is what we call love bombing. And so because you're new there and they're excited to have you there, you're a potential convert, a potential member, they will show such an extreme interest in you. They're so excited to be with you, and they want your phone number, and they want to invite you to this meeting and this outing, and just really kind of an overwhelming interest in you that is strange, because these are people who don't know you. Maybe a lot of intense questions, probing in ways that they don't have the right to ask you that. That's actually none of their damn business, whatever it is. But that can also be something that goes on. I like people to trust their gut. I do feel like we can often tell if we walk into a situation, have your guard up. Right? You don't want everyone to have such intimate access to you. But the problem is, when we've come out of a group like that, we already have that feeling of familiarity in the community, and we long for it. And so then we're kind of ripe pickings for another group. Everyone's vulnerable at some time in their life. And it can be because they promise that they're going to change the world and you can help them, and that's really exciting. Or it can just be that you're lonely. It can be that you're depressed. Often it's because your identity is in flux. Maybe you've left home for the first time. You're off to university without mom and dad, or maybe you've become a widow, or you're divorced. You've moved to a new town. These are all things that leave us vulnerable because we don't have a social support network established yet. Also, of course, people who've been traumatized, and there can be a real neediness there, like they have genuine needs as they're trying to get their feet back on the ground. Churches are famous for hosting AA meetings, right? It's a great way to get new converts, to hold those meetings in churches.
Yeah, and those tactics are also used by also new partners who are emotionally manipulating. So what you said about love bombing, I've seen that so many times with my friends, and obviously with, you know, in TV shows and other sort of environments. Like, it's such a massive thing, and it's like something that repeats itself constantly during different, like across different organizations and people. So it's definitely something that is very, very effective and very dangerous.
Yes, and also that can include the person or the group not giving you adequate time away from them. They're not giving you time to stop and think through issues. They want you to come to a meeting every night of the week, or this new love interest wants all of your time. And that we need time to process things, to process information. We need sleep. Our body needs rest, and a lot of cults also incorporate very heavy physical activity, again, to kind of keep you off kilter mentally and exhausted. And then it's harder for you to think critically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so that is very true.
On that note, how can we think critically? How can we make sure that we're following through it and not falling for these tactics?
I think the best thing that we can do is be willing to research and explore, even when something sounds really good. Even you've had this itch and it finally feels like that itch is getting scratched. You know that old adage about if it feels too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. So there are different sites on the internet that can help people with critical thinking and keep them from falling into mistakes. So critical thinking is the objective analysis and evaluation of an issue in order to form a judgment. But when we're in a fundamentalist type of group, we can't be objective. Our ability to be objective is already gone. So it makes it almost impossible to think critically. And then of course the cognitive dissonance that comes in when someone is trying to point out to us that our group maybe isn't the greatest group. Maybe there's a problem here. We do not want to hear it, particularly if we've invested a lot of time and money and energy and resources into this group. And maybe we've even convinced other people to join the group. Maybe our whole family is part of the group. It's hard to think about leaving, and it's even harder to leave.
It seems like from my own experience and some of the stories and studies I read, that being in, like what we talked about at the beginning, being in a church service or religious service is almost designed to hijack our critical thinking, or maybe not almost, it seems and is designed to hijack our critical thinking skills, to sort of, it seems to put that part of our brain to sleep and allows others to inject their own thoughts and ideas into our head. And it seems like it's the use time, like every Sunday you come here and go through this, as well as love bombing and several other tactics too.
Oh yeah, and doing things like when we are singing together with other people. So it doesn't just happen at church, it happens at sports games.
Hmm.
It happens in the military. They have you singing while you're marching. There are different events where people will be singing together. It's a very, very bonding activity because singing actually can be quite emotional. And when you're all singing together the same song, it really can be very stirring for us. And I mean, the military has known this forever, since the military has been around. And certainly churches have had a long, long, long time to perfect this business of getting people to come into the community, commit to the community, and stay in the community.
I was one of the favorite parts of the church services that I used to attend. The parts where I didn't fall asleep in was the singing. The sermon part, I'm just like whatever. But the parts that I actually loved the most was that singing. Like the sound would kind of just reverberate through all of my cavities, and it just would have this euphoric feeling. And I loved coming back every Sunday to get that feeling again. Something I couldn't do on my own necessarily, but it took this whole group to provide this really unique feeling.
Absolutely, yeah, and I would say without a doubt that's what I miss the most as well, is singing with other people. And of course, along with that, so you're not just singing about nature, you're singing about God, about this creator or this group. You're singing about something that's much bigger than yourself. So there's kind of an ephemeral quality to it. And that also ties in with feeling special. And that's one reason that people join groups and stay in groups, is that they feel special being being part of that community.
Yeah. So because we have been sort of trained and molded to put that critical thinking side of our brain to sleep, do you have any idea or any thoughts on how we could sort of start to wake it up? I think you had mentioned some websites that are out there to help us.
Yes, and I'll be happy to pass those along to you, actually, so that you can pass them on to your viewers, because certainly critical thinking is not a skill that I was raised having, and I don't believe it's really taught in our schools these days either. So it's something that we want to develop for ourselves and also for our children. And it's something that when we're having dinner with our kids, if they're telling us something about a program they watched or something that they learned, really to ask them about it. And sometimes even asking about it from another point of view, just to get them thinking about it, because everything's presented to us in one way. We get one view when someone's presenting something to us. So what we want to be able to do is move around and see other potential viewpoints for whatever the information is, and to be able to research it and verify it.
One of the things that really helped me train myself to do that was the Skeptic's Guide, and is still the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe podcast. They are just fantastic at it and continue to challenge me and encourage me to flex that critical thinking and skeptical muscle in my own brain.
Awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, and that's, sorry.
No, it was key to knocking down one thing after another, one magical bit of thinking after another, until I had this existential crisis when, but without that podcast, I don't know how else I would have gotten that education or those skills. It's
yeah. What we need to be able to do is separate our belief from our devotion to the belief. When we're holding a belief very tightly, there's no room in there for exploration. So we need to be able to get a little bit of space there in between us and the devotion to the belief. And then there are questions that we can ask ourselves about whatever belief we're holding. So we want to figure out, what do I actually believe about X, say whatever X is? Who introduced me to X, who introduced me to this philosophy, what was their relationship to me? Because if it was a parent or a caregiver and I was a child, I did not truly have a choice. I just would absorb the information. I want to please my caregiver, my teacher, whoever it is. So what was their relationship to me? How old was I? And of course, we do want to determine, is X true? Is it verifiable? So, and when we find ourselves really attached very firmly, like strongly, passionately defending an ideology or a belief, it's time to examine our attachment to that belief. Because it might mean then that it's something that is meshing with our own identity, or we're having enmeshment with that belief. And then it's going to be really hard for us to think critically. Because again, we feel like we're being attacked rather than that the belief is just being questioned. So, and that can happen in any sphere, any belief that we have. So we want to be aware of that.
I see that a lot too when certain religions are challenged and they folks react in a very hostile way oftentimes, and it seems like it's way of excessive to what the initial attack was, and I think that's kind of an indication of you're challenging my deeply held belief. I don't want to think of it another way, so let me bite you so you don't come back and do it again. And I think the same thing kind of goes along the lines with the blasphemy laws that are all across the world in several different countries too. The whole concept of blasphemy. I think ideas should be challenged and dumb ideas should be made fun of. And nothing is really off limits for adults to be challenged and discussed. And so I'm not a fan of blasphemy at all.
Of course. Well, it's that mind shift is a shock to people, to those of us who were raised in fundamentalist groups and homes, and it was demanded of us that we be ready and willing and able to give a defense for our beliefs. So we had to know, we really had to know, okay, well, the Bible says this and my pastor says this. So we're not necessarily thinking about what we think about it. We just know what's been told to us, what we're supposed to think about it. So then to wrap your mind around being able to question your own beliefs, being able to question the beliefs of other groups and religions. I mean, religion is certainly a sacred cow, and I mean, I think it needs to be slaughtered, and that's not a real popular opinion in a lot of places today.
Can you talk a bit about how fanaticism is related to fundamentalism and mind control? Because I'm sure I think fanaticism is often used to recruit more younger people, maybe. So I feel like it can be more dangerous and more like preying on the most vulnerable people again. So
right, yeah, great question. So fundamentalism and fanaticism, they're not identical, but they are very closely related. With fundamentalism, appealing a lot to folks who are seeking security. So they're looking backwards wistfully, hearkening to some whatever idealized version of the past that they'd like to see restored. Makes them feel kind of safe. But fanaticism does appeal more to youth because they're seeking drama and action. But both of those groups, when they get in their echo chambers, just hearing the same things from their people, it makes them avoid critical thinking and what actually relates them, because you can have a Saul to Paul experience, but you can also have a Paul to Saul experience. So fundamentalists, they can't be convinced, but they can be converted. They can be converted over often to an equally extreme opposing view, because what what relates them is their passion. Their passion for it. They have to be passionate about something because they're often uncertain of their own identity. And that's when we're having that identity crisis, we gain confidence by believing in something that seems sacred to us. Any cause can become a holy cause, and anybody can become a defender of a holy cause. But the danger then is that we stop seeing the humanity of people who don't believe that. And we can start finding cruelty as acceptable for people who don't toe the line, who don't hold that view. I went on a little bit of a rabbit trail there, but hopefully that answered some of your questions.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, antagonizing the others or the external group is I think one of the most like dangerous parts of it, because it can A, isolate you from your friends and family, and B, make you more radical and less accepting of other ideas. So
Right.
yeah, you answered that perfectly. Yeah.
And cues that we are maybe holding too tightly to an ideology or a belief is if we're using the words should and must and have to, because those words let us know that somebody has created rules for us along the way, and that if we don't follow those rules, potentially there's judgment and punishment. And then we run into issues with love. Love becomes conditional when we are deeply attached to a belief. Our love for others can become conditional, and even our love for ourselves can depend on whether or not we are adhering to that belief. And this is, so even if we're able to divorce religion, the space where self-acceptance should be has been hijacked by self-judgment. And because we are now apostate, we may subconsciously think that we are not even worthy of being loved. So that's a point where you may need to consult with a professional therapist to help as you're rebuilding yourself.
Yeah, no, that makes absolutely perfect sense. Yeah. So how can you identify someone who is religious fanatic or not? I mean, I say religious, it can be MLM, as we mentioned in the poll, fanatic or something like this.
Yeah. Well, again, I would say use of the words should and must and have to, that can help us see that someone has an overly strong attachment to an idea. If they're unable to talk about anything else, if it doesn't matter what you're talking with them about, but they have to bring in that topic or that group, yeah, that's not just a piece of their pie anymore. It's taken over the whole pie. Like it's becoming the whole thing. So, and I mean, we all like pie, but geez, I'll just have a piece of it, please. So yeah, those are things to look for. And again, if you start feeling prickly about it, like if, how come every time I see this person, they just want to talk about this thing over and over again? Well, go with your gut on that. You can tell something is not right there.
Yeah, so follow your instincts kind of thing. Yeah, that makes sense.
And this this conversation is centering around religion specifically, but it doesn't necessarily just reside in the spectrum of religion. I mean, this seems to be more of a human. We can attach ourselves to almost any cause, whether it's religious or not. I mean, from what you're saying, it sounds a lot like both sides of our current political situation here in the United States, both some far extreme Democrats and some very far extreme Republicans as well. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I think so, because it's, pardon me, definitely when we get to a point where we're categorizing strongly between us and them, and we're really, it's not just an ideology that we're holding, we become that. I don't just believe this thing, I am this thing. And that's when real division starts to occur.
Mhm. So then how can you tell between something that that is part of your identity, like I am a woman, I am a humanist, I am a secular person, from like differentiating that from what you said of I am not these things are just, I don't know, I guess part of I'm not sure if I'm making sense, but because someone could say like, well, then being a humanist then is fanaticism, because it is, you are a humanist, is part of your identity. Does that make sense?
Right. And pardon me. So being a humanist, to me, that I'm looking for I'm hoping for the betterment of all humans. It's not just, if your group, it's the dispensing of existence, going back to Lipton that I was talking about at the beginning. All outside group members are unsaved or they're damned. If you find yourself falling into that way of thinking, you really need to examine it. You really need to examine it, because that's just much too strong. And I confess that things are so highly charged politically right now, it's hard for me sometimes not to roll my eyes when when someone's talking and they seem so far off. But I really would prefer to see and think about what we have in common, rather than only fixating on what is so different about us. Because what we all have in common is that we are human. We're all worthy of dignity and love and respect.
But I want people to know that they're wrong. So, it's important for me to keep these, to keep them in their place, or let them know that they're wrong. But
well,
I don't
perhaps
know.
we could instead,
that doesn't work, though.
We could present it as, have you ever considered it this way? Or, you're couching it in, that's a really interesting idea. I've never thought about that before. Have you ever thought about it like this? And when we approach the topic like that, it's not so off-putting, because of course, anyone who feels that they are being criticized, they're not going to be listening very well or very deeply. So we want to try and keep avenues of communication open.
What can someone do if they want to become a fanatic? What are some of the, what can someone do just to kind of paint this?
Well, I'm so glad you asked. Yes, I did write out for my workshop how to become a fanatic in 5 easy steps. And I'm going to tell you that right now. To start off, step 1.
5 easy steps?
5 easy steps.
How many payments is that?
That's right. It's a good payment plan. First of all, you're just curious about spirituality, so you're going to investigate. Step 2, become captivated by a fundamentalist or rigid ideology. Step 3, openly declare it as your chosen belief and label yourself accordingly. Make it your community, but still be comfortable with outsiders. Now at step 4, your fundamentalist beliefs and your identity are fusing. They're fusing together. Your beliefs are defining you and taking over your life. Your self-love has become conditional upon your belief. And now step 5 for becoming a fanatic, believe your ideology without question. Devalue non-believers, cut off relations with outsiders, be willing to face prison or death for your religious belief. Your identity has fused fully with your belief, making your support of the ideology more important than what it actually stands for. At step 1, you can attend any festival or mosque or temple and experience love and joy. By step 5, the religion itself has become more important than the God it promotes. So that's your 5 steps to becoming a fanatic.
Well, that sounds easy enough.
It was for me, I can tell you that. I wasn't even aware that it was going on because I was so steeped in it, having been raised in it. It never really crossed my mind to question it. My parents believed it, my friends believed it, the people that I respected believed it. I didn't think that I was a fanatic. Geez, now I'm on the other side. Boy, yeah, I have a very, very different view of it. And it's all about the levels of attachment, how strongly attached we are to an ideology.
Yeah, I was talking about this at a support group meeting just last week too. I've been a non-believer for 10 years now, and kind of just went through the whole process of rediscovering myself and rebuilding my worldview, and I couldn't really see into my past as objectively as I thought I could have at that time. But the further and further I get away from that initial rebuilding process, the more and more I can see how fanatical I was in the past as a young child and a teenager as well. So the whole my whole view of my own upbringing and the way I behaved and thought has completely changed over the last few years as I re-examine it. And yeah, it was surprising to me. Like when I saw it, I was shocked and had to kind of sit back for a little bit and really think, is this true? Am I just wanting to pity myself? But no, it was crazy just to see how fanatical I was back then.
Well, and there's nothing like believing that people are actually going to roast in an eternal hell forever and be tortured and tormented. Boy, that gives you like a pretty strong impetus to actually get out and trying to proselytize people when you truly believe that. But I haven't really found anything else besides that's been quite so motivating. So yeah, I understand it. And people when they get to the point that they recognize they've swallowed the Kool-Aid or they have been duped, they have spent much of their life in a belief system, or they've spent thousands of dollars, as in the case of multi-level marketing, or maybe they went to Bible college, there's an anger that comes after that. And people who've left are very familiar with this anger. So it's normal to feel angry, but if we stay angry, we're still allowing that group or person or ideology to have a large measure of control and power over us.
Yeah.
So I want people to be able to identify that anger, recognize why they're angry, and then do their best to be just moving on in life.
Yeah, I can totally identify with that anger. I was very angry when I came out of it. And it was, when I identified what the source was, it was because I felt lied to. I felt betrayed. But I couldn't blame anybody. I couldn't blame my parents because they were just doing what they were taught. I couldn't really even blame my pastors, but it was just the system. And I can't waggle my finger at the system or yell at the system or anything like that. But what was kind of neat is that once I got over that specific anger for being lied to or betrayed, I got past that, and the anger was still there, but it was no longer towards my own past. It was more towards the present of what religions are trying to do now, both to stay relevant and to weasel their way into my own life. And so it became, I feel, slightly more healthy anger than it was before.
Well, if I'm thinking of it in terms of a picture, it's like I have these huge rocks tied around me that are really holding me down, and the rocks are my anger about what has happened or what's been done to me. I want to be able to untie those from me as fast as I can, as soon as I can, because I want to be able to like run forward into my new life, the life that will be the life that I choose, the life that I make for myself, and I want to be unencumbered by that anger.
So you had, backing up slightly, you had talked about multi-level marketing. How, I was a part of, I feel so embarrassed to say this, but I was a part of a few multi-level marketing I was an entrepreneur. Oh, Amaya, don't give me that face.
You know, I mean, I'm not judging you. It's just that I didn't expect it because they typically approach women. So like, I was not expecting you to be like part of one of them. But I mean, of course, anyone can fall in their manipulation tactics. It's like there's no shame in that at all.
Yeah, I was primed for it. I am an entrepreneur. I started several businesses, and I thought, like, hey, I got this, knowing full well that the math doesn't work out. But I saw that fanatical type of behavior, and I felt so like the stadiums that they would fill with this, like the conferences we'd go to, and the stadiums they'd fill. I felt so uncomfortable in there because so many of the tactics they used in the multi-level marketing was what I experienced in church too. It was incredibly similar. And I felt uncomfortable. I'm like, I don't want to. I've been down that road before. I've been hurt by this same sort of treatment or method before. I can recognize this, and I don't want to be a part of it anymore.
Yeah, you're right on the money there, because MLMs essentially function much the same way that cults do. They're usually in a pyramid shape with someone at the top who's, you know, making all the rules and all the decisions and also getting all the glory and all the money, and then everybody's encouraged to be proselytizing or bringing in new people to be growing your upline or downline or whatever it is. And then there's a sense of community, and it's very rah. It is high pressure, and you're expected to be bringing up these MLMs, multi-level marketing groups, in every conversation that you have. Are you in the grocery store talking to the cashier? Well, you can tell her how she can better her life by using this product and selling this product. And MLMs are hugely popular in churches. They burn through churches, and it's actually quite unfortunate because they also destroy relationships. But the way that they attract a lot of religious people is by promising that if you are successful enough, which of course you will be, selling our fantastic product, you won't have to work anymore. You won't have to do any more work. You can do full-time ministry. And are you not holy enough? Why would you not want to do full-time ministry? So that's how a lot of young people unfortunately get sucked into MLMs because they never heard of them before. They don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I was one of those dicks that would message folks on Facebook like, hey, how you doing?
Oh my
God. Like, oh, I'm doing great. Thanks for reaching out to me. Yeah, you need any XYZ? Like, I got him. You come to me. You want to make some money? Oh my God.
Thankfully, I was in MLMs before there was Facebook or even before there was internet because I'm that old. But we did, Amway, Jewelway, Bytron, Juice Plus, and we never got rich from any of them, but we kept trying.
I don't know how many people unfriended me because I did that, but they were absolutely in the right to do so. So, what's next? What do you want to talk about next about this?
Well, I wonder if people are wondering if they're still displaying fundamentalist or rigid thinking. This might be something good to talk about. Are you still categorizing between us and them in any part of your life? Are you characterizing others as being all the same and only characterizing them by their negative traits?
Oh, like a stereotyping a group of people, whether it's by political affiliation, religious affiliation, even non-believers can fall into this trap. It seems.
Oh yeah, yes, by saying they're all the same, they're all alike. Are you avoiding or rejecting information from those that you disagree with, or if you think that their information might possibly poke a little hole in the armor that you have on? And I got to tell you this funny story. So when I was still married and we were living on the Bible college campus, a very conservative school, and I heard an article or read an article about this thing called a God helmet, and people would put it on and it stimulated different parts of the brain, and it could made some people have some kind of spiritual experience, like they felt that God was in the room. And I read it to my husband. I was just horrified. I said, what do you think of that? He said, I think we're going to get rid of that magazine and never talk about that again. So that goes along with what I just said. If you're avoiding and rejecting information from those you disagree with.
And so what if the information that is coming, they say that they're fair and balanced? I mean, how do you deal with that? I'm kidding. That was a reference to Fox News.
Oh my God. Yeah, see, I don't watch Fox News. I'm Canadian. Yeah, do your research for sure. Are you failing to consider points of view that are different than your own? Are you disapproving and disassociating with those outside your beliefs? Sometimes I confess, I go through my Twitter feed and boy, I just have a lot of people who are pretty down on religion and a lot of hardcore Democrats in there. I don't have too many other voices, but I mean, you're allowed to choose who you want to have, but I think it is very important, like you just brought up Fox News, not a bad idea every once in a while to tune in and see what they're saying. Oh, I know. You feel like you got to have a shower after.
That's like putting on underwear after I just had diarrhea or something. It just doesn't sound appealing at all to me, but that's just personal, me personally talking.
For those who may be eating dinner right now, we apologize for that reference. Here's a good one. Do you see non-believers and dissenters as the problem? Do you see them as the problem? Do you believe that only your group knows the truth? And do you behave self-righteously as a result? And for that one, you might have to ask an outsider for their opinion. But those are things just to keep in mind, even though we've left religion. That's a way for us to know if we're still displaying rigid thinking or fundamentalist thinking.
It sounds like each one of these points are kind of on a spectrum too. It's I can see some things that I'm very black and white about or very adamant about, but also some things that I still can examine that I may be slightly gray on. And there also seems like there's some things I've already worked on, but there's a lot of others that I still need to work on too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like to ask people, do you hold your beliefs or do they hold you? That's
oh my gosh, that is one hell of a quote.
Seriously.
Can you say that again for the folks in the back?
Do you hold your beliefs or do they hold you?
Oh, I love it.
Oh, right on. Okay, I'm glad I showed up today.
Good night, folks. Well, this was fun. We can just end right here and be good. So what else do you have that we can talk about?
I've got all my notes here, which is why I'm looking all around here to see. Did you know that some people believe, and I may be one, that religion can be an addiction? So there are process addictions, so there's substance addictions. You know what that is, but a process addiction might be like gambling, shopping, sex, or religion, because it's something that you do. I don't know if you've ever thought of it that way.
I have thought of it as a habit, but I never necessarily thought of it as an addiction. Like, I guess habits are maybe more behaviors that I had, but I can see it as an addiction. Okay. Right.
Okay, here's what I was looking at. Mental health professionals maybe they do have a series of questions they will ask to see if you are addicted to something. So if we modify it, we can ask them about religion. Do you use religion to avoid responsibilities? And I know some people do. I think particularly of people who, if their group tells them the end is nigh, they're not going to do anything. They're not going to go to college. They're not going to be saving for the future. Are you smirking, Mr. Wells?
Yes, I'm totally smirking because I'm thinking, if there is someone who knows everything, like some spiritual being that knows everything and has a plan, then I don't have to be responsible for things. It's all in that person's hands. I've abdicated for a long time that being religious sort of allows folks to give up the responsibility of.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So that's what I was smirking about. I'm just thinking to myself, man, that just hits the nail on the head right there.
Does preoccupation with religion cause you to neglect your job or your relationships? Because I mean, you should be witnessing to people rather than just working at your sales job or whatever, or instead of having a date with your partner, you better go out street witnessing. Oh my God, I've had to do that before.
You know, I've talked to some folks who needed to or had to intern at their church, or some Jehovah's Witnesses who have to participate in, I forgot what it's called, but the very specific thing where they need to go out.
The door knocking.
The door knocking, yeah, but work for the church, or
Free
maybe
labor.
go on missions or something like that too.
Does religion prevent you from outside friendships or activities? I think for a lot of people it does. Has anyone ever told you that your religious devotion is extreme? And if they have, you've probably taken it as like a compliment. Do you get defensive when questioned about your religion? So that, I mean, certainly if I was drinking a lot and someone was questioning me about my drinking, I would feel defensive about it. And, you know, maybe if I'm going to church 5 nights a week and a non-religious friend questions me about it, I might feel defensive about it. Do you give more time or money to your religion than you can afford? And I know people who definitely do that.
You know, there is one parable that in the Bible that started to bug me when I came out, and I think it was related to this. There's a parable where there's a wealthy man comes into this temple, drops, you know, I don't know, a couple hundred, it wasn't bucks back then, but a couple $100. And then there was this poor woman who puts in like 2 pennies or you know, maybe $1 into the offering thing. And I think Jesus said, like, that woman is so much better than the rich man because she gave all that she had. And I don't see that as a very good lesson to teach other folks. Like, you've got, there isn't a sky daddy that's going to take care of you. You've got to take care of yourself. And if you're giving everything to the religion, it's just is going to tie you in and lock you into that, and you'll have to become dependent on it. And so I hate that parable. It's just an awful lesson in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a lesson on fanaticism, actually. Yeah, you give every single thing you have, so you have nothing left. That doesn't sound too wise.
Yeah,
for sure. I did just want to backtrack there when I was talking about process addictions. I don't want to include sex in there because I don't believe that as an addiction. But gambling, I would say, definitely could be, and there are other things too. Yeah, so that's just about it for me. I have some quotes that I thought your viewers might enjoy.
But you had the best quote already. Can it possibly get any better?
I know, and that was
quotes
mine.
last time that you met with us, and they were fantastic. They were just great quotes. So hit us. What have you got?
All right. This one's by Aldous Huxley.
Oh.
One believes things because one has been conditioned to believe them. I feel that is the truth. And then one by one of your former presidents, JFK. Conformity is the jailer of freedom and the enemy of growth. And I love that one because my whole life was about conformity. I'm not going to
Can you
conform anymore.
repeat it again, sir?
Sure. Conformity is
Sorry,
the
I'm just trying.
conformity is the jailer of freedom and the enemy of growth. And that's by JFK.
You said one of our presidents because you are in Canada. You're in.
Yep, I'm Canadian.
Yeah. You're our cool neighbors upstairs.
Well, thank you. We're trying to keep our cool, but you guys are making us nervous. Oh, here's another good one by a person named Evita Ochel. And she said, until you realize how easily it is for your mind to be manipulated, you remain the puppet of someone else's game.
Mm.
So it's important for us to realize all of us, every single one of us, we can be manipulated because we are all vulnerable at some time. So please don't look at others with judgment. If you see either that they are in a high control group or they've come out of a high control group, they don't need your judgment, they need your compassion.
Awesome. Janice, thank you so much for sitting down and talking to us. This was great. I think I'm lucky because I feel like I've got a little bit of therapy out of this too, just being able to examine some of my own behaviors and my own thoughts and become better because of it. So thank you so much for sitting down with us again.
It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
We have got some questions for you, and we also have some resources to provide for folks as well. They'll be in the chat in a moment, and we'll also have them in the video description. But just like last time, Janice, we have a hangout afterwards. Would you mind sticking around for a couple of minutes to talk with some folks?
I would love to stick around, but I have to turn off this light that's shining on me because I'm about to faint. It's so hot in here. Oh, baby Jesus in a race car. It is hot, hot, hot in Canada today.
Baby Jesus in a race car?
You never heard that one?
I have never heard that one. I know what his car number is. It's 666 on his car number, right?
Oh, okay, I'm melting here.
All right. Yeah, feel free to turn the light off, but we've got some questions for you.
All right.
Maya, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, if I don't keep cutting off, yeah, sure. So the first one is, what is wrong with accountability groups? Being a newish vegetarian, I found accountability within a vegetarian group to be very helpful.
Right. So I have no problem with vegetarians or even with vegans. I have some very good friends that fall into those categories. I think we need to be careful that our self-acceptance does not become contingent upon how rigidly we follow any set of rules, whether it's what we eat or what we wear or what we believe. I mean, if you have some ice cream and you enjoy the ice cream, even though you're usually a vegetarian and it's not usually on your diet, and then you can be like, okay, that's all right, I had some ice cream, and then go back and do your day. But if you have that ice cream and then it's eating you up inside, you're just racked with guilt because you did this thing, and it's really affecting your ability to love yourself. I want people to be careful and be mindful of those things. And also with accountability groups, there can be a real tendency to overshare. There can be invasions of privacy. So keep that in mind too. You can share what you want to share. You don't have to share one more thing.
So the last question is, can you repeat the second step to become a religious fanatic?
Oh, sure. The second step was to become captivated by a fundamentalist ideology. Mm-hmm. So at first you're just open and investigating, but then you're actually really zeroing in on an ideology.
Can we just have a quick recap of like all of the steps? Yes.
Sure. That was step 1, be curious. Step 2, become captivated. Step 3, openly declare it as your chosen belief and label yourself accordingly. Not just, I think this, I am this. And then, but still at step 3, you can be comfortable with others who don't hold that belief. But in step 4, your belief and your identity are becoming fused together. Your belief defines you and is taking over your life, and your self-love has become conditional on your belief. And then the 5th step is to believe your ideology without question. Devalue non-believers. Cut off relations with outsiders. Be willing to face prison or death for your belief. Your identity has fused fully with your belief, making your support of the ideology more important than what it actually stands for.
Thank you so much, Janice. Well, you feel free to turn on the fan and turn off the light and cool down some, because we're going to talk about next week's RfRx, and we'll also hear from our executive director as a kind of a closing message. So you've got some time to cool down.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Yeah, thanks again. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so that's going to conclude our RfRx for today. We want to talk about next week's RfRx. We say this every time, and it's true every time, as you can see, because you guys keep coming back. It's going to be a great one. So we have this idea, and we kind of are going to be starting it up next week. It'll be the first of the series, and this is the series is going to be a religion-specific series. We're going to be bringing on some experts. They're going to talk about their own stories inside of their particular religion. They're also going to discuss some of the challenges that they faced or certain groups of people face within the religion. We're going to talk about some of the challenges people face coming out, some of the unique challenges they face coming out of the religion. And we're also going to talk about like what sets this specific religion apart from the others. We're kind of seeing this as a resource for folks who have friends or family that are in a specific religion, be it Jehovah's Witness or Mormonism or Roman Catholicism or what have you. We're kind of seeing this as a resource for folks to use and look to for people they care about, or even folks who are coming out of it to kind of perhaps see what's coming down the line and what to expect. So that's kind of the idea that we've got, and our first one will be starting next Monday, and it will feature Lloyd Evans and Sherry D'Souza, and we're going to talk about the Jehovah's Witness religion. So I'm actually kind of excited about this, to see how it goes, and to see kind of if it's helpful for others in the future. We have a couple more of these planned down the line. I'm not going to tell you which ones they are yet. You'll just have to keep tuning in, but we've got a couple more, and I think they're going to be good. You want to tell us, Amaya, about the previous RfRx recordings and such?
Yeah, sure. So as we have said before, if you want to rewatch any of our previous RfRx sessions, all you have to do is go to our YouTube channel, which if you give me a sec, I will link it in the chat.
I'll take care of it.
All right, perfect. And if you want to send us any questions, any feedback, anything that you feel like we should talk about more, anything that you think we should change, just let us know in our email address. That is rfrx@recoveringfromreligion.org. I think that's pretty much it. Now I'm going to let the absolutely amazing, fantastic, lovely, great, perfect, human, superior being, Gayle Jordan, bless us with her 60 seconds of the RfRx sessions.
How will I ever live up to that introduction? Thank you for those kind words. I want to tell you what, as we have all been in this time of isolation, seeing your faces every week, I've enjoyed every minute of it, but mostly I just go from looking at your face to the next person to the next person. I've been so hungry for interaction. And even though the screen is between us, I just love seeing your faces. It's the highlight of my week. Janice, what a wonderful program, what a wonderful presentation. Even those of us who have been out of religion for a number of years can benefit from reflecting on these things and remembering these things and bringing our awareness back to some of the things that we feel like we've already dealt with and we've moved on. And yet it's still so valuable, not only in our own lives, but to increase our sensitivity to the other people with whom we come in contact so that we can remember what those phases are, what those steps are. And that was a wonderful discussion, and I got a lot out of it. Others, I'm so grateful that you're here this evening. You've heard me give this commercial. If you've been attending RfRx a number of times, you know what we do. You know that we depend upon our wonderful volunteers for so many of the things that we do. If you're ready for that, we'd love for you to jump right in. I see everybody waving to me. There are volunteers. If you're ready to do that, we'd love to have you join us. If that's not your bag, if that's not your thing, but you're in a place where you can financially support us, we don't have a revenue stream of membership. We don't hold a convention. We are laser focused on our mission. And so we're dependent upon the donations of folks who share our passion for what we're doing. So if you're in a place where that works for you, we would be grateful for that too. And finally, if you're not in a position to do either one of those things, there's a lot of other things you can do for us. And I've mentioned it before, retweeting our tweets, boosting our Facebook posts, visiting our blog, and making comments so that that draws people in for interaction. And you know that algorithm, how that works when you engage with us, if you can do that kind of thing, to help us get the message out to more folks who can benefit from what we do, not only at our Monday night meeting, but all the other support groups that we have in our helpline community, our online community. Thank you again for coming. As I said, I wasn't kidding when I say it's the highlight of my week to see your beautiful faces. Thank you for sharing this evening with us. And now we look forward to the relaxing social part.
Reach out today at recoveringfromreligion.org.